unstoppable. The Zanu PF propaganda machinery is fired up. Amendment number 3 is unstoppable, they proclaim. The truth of the matter is, it can be stopped if you know what you're doing. That is the important message. And so far, to be quite honest, we have failed to stop this juggernaut. Zanu PF has been in power for 46 years and counting. And the regime has grown stronger and stronger. And with amendment number 3, the regime intends to turn what has been a de facto one-party state, dictatorship, to a de jure, consolidating its power. Is this amendment stoppable? It is, if you know what you're doing. Here is Mnangagwa boasting, in many ways trying to give the justification why this is unstoppable, why the regime believes they're unstoppable. And this is what we have to deal with. The regime's overwhelming powers. He was caught boasting about how the regime controls everything. And there's no doubt about it. They do control everything. It is naive to believe, to pretend otherwise. And that is precisely the point. Let's just listen to him boasting about it.
The army, we are the air force, we are the police, we are everything you can think of.
Sorry about the sound quality of that one. What we are basically saying there is,
we are the army, we are the air force, we are the police, we are everything you can think of. We determine who can do mining in Zimbabwe. We determine who can construct a railway line in Zimbabwe. We determine.
he is right. Zanu PF has managed to corrupt all the state institutions, the judiciary, the army, the police, the ZEC, and they've got their own team of Skanandas who have got access to resources, and they've been using those resources to bribe whoever the regime considered a threat or necessary to bribe. One of the articles that has been circulating on the social media is Jivayo buying a fleet of cars for commanders in the armed service, in the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. Bribery. This has been a cornerstone of the Zanu PF dictatorship. In a country where basic infrastructure like roads, water supply are in a sorry state, we still continue to spend billions of dollars every month on bribes and luxuries for the Zanu PF ruling elite and their cronies. Meanwhile, the ordinary people continue to suffer. What we have here is a situation where the ordinary people, the good of Rome, has been completely compromised. And it is now the glory of Caesar that is paramount. This is the reality. Our problem so far is we have failed to end this system because we have been sending the wrong people to do it. We cannot deny that the opposition has had many golden opportunities to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. They failed to do so because they are corrupt. That is the truth. Why some people continue to deny that beggars belief? I have said on this platform, and I'll say it again, this is not about stopping amendment number 3. Amendment number 3 is a decoy. Ever since soon after the 2023 elections, when Mnangagwa came up with this ED 2030 agenda, it was meant to be a decoy. It was a decoy. That is the truth. Soon after the 2023 elections, Mnangagwa was already talking of he need to extend his stay in power by another 2 years. You've not even served the first year of that mandate. Why are you already talking of extending it? He threw that in deliberately because he wanted to draw people's attention away from the fact that he had rigged the 2023 elections. The fight in Zimbabwe, ever since the late 1990s, has been about dismantling the Zanu PF dictatorship by implementing the democratic reforms necessary to stop the regime rigging elections. The people have risked livelihoods, limbs, and many have even died, electing MDC CCC leaders whose number one task was to implement the reforms. They did have the opportunity to implement those reforms. They failed to implement even one reform. during the GNU because Mugabe and Zanu PF bribed them. This has been at the heart of our problem. Like I said, amendment number 3 is a decoy. The fight we should have been pushing for is fighting to ensure that there are free, fair, and credible elections. And focus on that. And let not allow ourselves to be sidetracked by decoys. But when you're dealing with an opposition that has already sold out, that has already been compromised, it is easy to see why they are so easily sidetracked. It is in the interest of the opposition leaders like Chamisa, Tendai Biti, Douglas Monzora, and so forth, to drum up this issue of stopping amendment number 3 when they know they cannot do so. What is the point of submitting a constitutional challenge when the regime itself boasts that they own the constitution, the constitutional courts? So what is the point? The point here is if you take it through that route and the constitutional court says there was nothing illegal about amendment number 3, you have to accept the results. This is the same thing with the elections. We've said repeatedly, you cannot keep on participating in flawed elections that you know are flawed. So flawed, so illegal, the only logical step to do is to withdraw. As David Coulthard has himself admitted in his book. And I've quoted that book several times. Opposition leaders know about it. But they are the ones who have continued to participate out of greed. Here is how we can stop this gravy train. This amendment number 3. We don't have to stop the amendment itself. We just have got to make sure that it is going nowhere. If we focus on making sure the next elections, even if they postpone the 2028 to 2030, we make sure the next elections are either free, fair, and credible, i.e. the regime has implemented all the democratic reforms, or we do not participate in the process, and thus deny it legitimacy. That will force the regime, that will force SADC and the AU to deny the regime legitimacy. This has happened before. This is why the regime was forced into the GNU in 2008, because SADC denied them legitimacy. We need to do it again. If Zanu PF is denied legitimacy after the next elections, then the country will be forced to go into another GNU. A government of national unity is different from a dictatorship. So even if Mnangagwa had managed to extend his stay in office to 2030, with the hope that that election in 2030 will deliver a Zanu PF victory and elect him for another term. That will not happen, because a GNU is not a Zanu PF dictatorship. It doesn't matter even if they have another Zanu PF leader, somebody else other than Mnangagwa. As long as the Zanu PF does not win the next election, this will be the end of the Zanu PF dictatorship. The amendment, with all the extra powers that it's giving the president, will come to nothing, because the GNU will be tasked to implement the democratic reforms which should have been implemented during the 2008 to 2013 GNU, and were not implemented because Zanu PF or the opposition sold out. This will be our time, our chance to finally get those reforms implemented. We don't need to stop the amendment number 3 train. You just need to make sure that it goes nowhere. We can end the Zanu PF dictatorship by making sure that Zanu PF does not win the next election. If they rig the next elections, they do not get away with it. That is all we need to do. Nothing made by ordinary mortals cannot be stopped or dismantled by ordinary mortals. As much as Zanu PF wants to think they are invincible, they are invincible. We do not need to waste our time trying to stop this amendment number 3, because we don't. That is not the priority. Our priority is just to make sure that we end the dictatorship. Because you end the Zanu PF dictatorship, there would be no dictator. Our biggest problem has been that we have been more focused on making sure we remove the existing dictator without regard to whether or not we are getting another dictator in his place. That is exactly what happened in 2017. We need to stop that madness. We are not interested in stopping Mnangagwa. Even if he gets in, let him get in. We are interested in ending the dictatorship. Without the dictatorship, there cannot be a dictator. That is the number one message that the people of Zimbabwe must realize. We can't keep on fighting this endless circus because we failed to think in a rational way. Think about it. Thank you. Have a good day.